The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 214. The Wolverine suffer a beatdown in South Bend. Can this young team regroup and move forward? We'll find out this Saturday when Miami of Ohio rides into town with their 18-game losing streak.
Oh man, Euchre's been broadcasting for 27 years. I have never seen anything like this. They need 2 inches. Dennis Franklin, the quarterback, taking a long count from center. He hands off to Shuttlesworth 5, and it's down to the end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown, Dennis Franklin! Oh my God, Dennis Franklin fooled everybody. He fooled me. He fooled the entire Ohio State team. Kneeling is Larry Gustafson. Attempting will be Super Toe. Super Toe will kick the 30-yard field goal. It's kicked to send over end. It's a tied-up ball game. 10-10. Okay. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Carter hands up. Carter's down. Look at those Wolverine. 95 Wolverine. Going in the end zone. Carter's got the pass. In the air, it's done. Buford is going out of his mind. I have never seen anything like this in all my 40 years of covering Michigan football.
This is the Michigan Man Podcast. On GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. For Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. I suppose the loss to Appalachian State 6 years ago was the worst Michigan game I've witnessed, but Saturday night's pummeling in South Bend has to be second. None of us would have been shocked if Michigan would have lost a hard-fought game to a good Notre Dame team, and in the end this might be a very good Irish squad. But none of us expected domination and humiliation on the scale we witnessed Saturday night. But it's done and over. There are 10 more games on the schedule and plenty of winnable games. This week, Miami of Ohio visits the Big House riding an 18-game losing streak. On our visitor segment, we will be joined by the 30-year voice of Red Hawk football, Steve Baker. Then on our Michigan Game Day segment, beat writer Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press joins us with his Notre Dame post-mortem and discusses what Team 135 has to do to move forward. First, a few thoughts on my view from Section 17 this week to get things started. I think Mark Snyder said it best during our interview today. Notre Dame isn't as good as they looked Saturday night, and Michigan isn't as bad as we think. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. That said, Saturday night's performance was troubling on many levels. The offense could not find consistency in the first half, and the defense couldn't get off the field. The press coverage we've been waiting to see was basically destroyed by Everett Golson and his array of very fleet receivers. We stopped the run, but got torched in the passing game. Sure, Peppers didn't play, but do you really think he would have made a difference? Maybe. I think the reality is we might need to go to more zone coverage in the secondary. Blake Countess and Raymond Taylor don't have the wheels to stay with fast receivers in bump coverage. Jordan Lewis has the wheels, but his technique needs work. The defense was expected to carry us early in the year, and they still might. But Saturday was a punch in the mouth. We need to play better, and we need to adjust better to what offenses are doing. Notre Dame didn't try anything sexy or high-tech against us. They just came out and said, if you're going to put 8 guys in the box, we're going to throw the football. Go ahead and stop it. We never did. On offense, the first 2 series looked good. Missing the field goals early, that hurt big time, especially, I think, mentally. Before we knew it, Notre Dame was up 21-0, and then the offense had to abandon the game plan for the most part. We all saw what happened. The Irish decided to come after Devin on every snap, and he finally cracked. 3 picks and 1 fumble in the second half. Now, it's not all on Devin, but he has to clean it up and be more consistent. I suppose I could go on and on about what went wrong and what needs to change, but I'm going to stop there and look ahead. This week, Miami of Ohio visits the Big House riding an 18-game losing streak. You would think this Saturday could be just what the doctor ordered. The Red Hawks are coached by Brian Kelly disciple and former Notre Dame offensive coordinator Chuck Martin. Guess what we're going to see this weekend? You got it. Miami will come out and attack the secondary. It's what they do, throw the football. Many of you will probably say, yeah, but it's Miami. So what? If our secondary plays like they did last week, it could be a big day for this Miami team. This isn't a week off for Michigan, not after last Saturday's debacle. We better come ready to play, because rest assured, Miami will. Steve Baker has been the radio play-by-play voice of Miami football for 30 years now. He's seen some very good teams and players come through Oxford, Ohio. He joins us next on our visitor segment, here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Joining us on our visitor segment this week as we get ready for a visit from the Red Hawks of Miami University, the play-by-play voice of Red Hawk football, Steve Baker. Steve, great to have you on the show with us.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Steve, a tough start to the season for Miami. It opened with a loss to Marshall, and then on Saturday, the Red Hawks led midway through the third quarter, but then lost to Eastern Kentucky. So, to say the least, it's been a really tough start, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. You know, we went up against Marshall, a real good football team, and probably played some of the best football I've seen this team play in quite a while. Came back and had that, what was a 28-3 halftime deficit, cut it down to 28-20, and, got it within 8 points a couple of times before Marshall walked away with the victory. And then Saturday it was one of those games. We came out, took the opening drive, 75 yards in 3 plays, scored a touchdown, and got up early in the game, and then things, kind of got ugly. We had 6 turnovers in the game, key illegal procedure calls on the offense, and, suddenly you're behind the chains, and, we spent the rest of the game just not being able to move the football. Even when we got in the red zone, we could only muster 3 more points. We had a missed field goal, a blocked field goal, and just couldn't get the ball in the end zone, and that's going to spell trouble against a good team. And Eastern Kentucky, their defense played very well, and the offense got enough things going, and a trick play late with a wide receiver throwback, and it's a touchdown that gives them the winning score. So it was an awfully disappointing Saturday for us, and hopefully coaches will get together and get the ship a little bit righted before we get up to the big house on Saturday.
Well, Steve, to be fair, it's the beginning of a new era for Miami football. A name we're all familiar with here in Michigan is the new head man, Coach Chuck Martin. Mm-hmm. He was around Grand Valley State for years with Brian Kelly, and then the head coach comes to Miami after 4 years on Brian Kelly's staff at Notre Dame. So it is another year of transition for Miami football, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, and and they've done a great job, Chuck and his staff, since coming in December, putting together a real quick recruiting class. Literally, by the time you get all of your coaches hired, you have less than a month to get out there and hit the recruiting trail. And some of that work was done by the previous staff, but they put together a real nice class. And then getting through spring ball and then into fall camp, it seems like it's you bat your eyes and you're playing football for real. So. Still a little bit, actually a lot of, learning process going on by the players and learning the new system. Chuck was lucky. He brought 3 players with him from Notre Dame, guys. It's a couple from the Cincinnati area, and then Low Wood came down as a defensive back, and some guys that know what Coach Martin wants and how he coaches, and that helped out a lot. But, there's a lot of work to be done, and Coach Martin, he's the right man for this job. It's it's going to take a little bit of time to get back to Miami football the way it's been before. But I really like Coach Martin and his staff and the way they're approaching things.
Well, Steve, he's a guy, when he was up here at Grand Valley State, was highly regarded as a great offensive mind. And, of course, Coach Kelly at Notre Dame thinks the same things. But he's going to need time to get the kind of players, his style of players, to Miami. Barring a complete disaster in the program, how long do you think he gets to put his program in place?
Oh, it's going to take a couple of years at the very least. You're coming in, and we had no depth at the offensive line to start with. And, it's a kind of thing, at this level, if you're recruiting freshmen and you have to put them in there at the starting lineup, or in the two deep on offensive line, they're not going to get a chance to really work and add to their body because they're out there just busting their tail every day. So you want to try and bring kids in that you can sit and let work out with the team and and get in the weight room and get the nutrition in them and build some bodies. And that's part of the process. Out of his recruiting class of 22, I think we recruited maybe 15 what we'll call athletes, mostly high school tight ends that have just great frames, and Coach Martin wants to build up. So we're small in all positions, but we're really need some help in the offensive and defensive lines, and that's what they went to get in the recruiting area. And I think they'll hit there again in this off season and in this recruiting period. But it's going to take at least 2, maybe even 3 years to get this program back to where it should be with Miami University.
Well, Steve, looking at the team as it is right now, the offense last year was last in the MAC in 2013 in 4 major statistical categories in rushing, passing, total, and scoring offense. Does Coach Martin have enough talent on the roster right now to expect better things or improvement this year?
Oh, I think so. When you take a look at just Andrew Hendricks coming in with him from Notre Dame, Andrew's a very confident guy and can throw the ball around and make some things happen on his own. He's an excellent mobile quarterback. And, this is the kind of guy that when you stack in David Frazier at wideout, Dajuan Scott at wideout, Jared Murphy at wideout, these guys a year ago didn't get the ball. Our offense was so anemic that we couldn't get them the ball in space to make plays. That's not the case with this quarterback and this offense. And, even Spencer McGinnis had a pretty decent day running the football. I think this offense is capable of some things. Obviously they've struggled in the red zone in the first couple of games. That part of it's got to be worked out. But I don't think there's any doubt that there's enough talent out there, certainly, to put some points on the board.
Well, you just mentioned a few of the names on this offensive team, but who are some of the other guys Saturday that we're going to see in the big house, other than Andrew Hendricks, that are key for Miami to have success?
I mentioned him. Dajuan Scott had a great game against Marshall. Wasn't as prevalent in the game against Eastern Kentucky. They did a nice job on him, but he's got to have a good game. I think you'll see David Frazier, have a pretty good game as well, or at least try and get him the football. Spencer McGinnis at tailback, he wasn't even on the two deep to start the season, but has come out and has really run the ball well against Eastern Kentucky. So on the offensive side, he's going to be a guy that we'll be watching. And defensively, Kent Curran, our middle linebacker, has just had 2 spectacular games back-to-back. He is the quarterback of the defense, if you will, and does a great job in getting guys in the right spot. Like I said, the defensive unit played well enough to win that football game. Aside from the one mistake on the trick play, they played some really good football. Lowood in the backfield or defensive secondary. Bryson Albright on the defensive line has a great motor, and also Jatarius Jones had a great game against Eastern Kentucky as well. So there's some players there on the defense. Obviously, they're going to have their hands full with the Wolverines, but there's some players on defense that will hopefully have a pretty good game on Saturday.
Our guest with us here on our visitors segment today, as we get ready for the Miami game on Saturday, is the radio play-by-play voice of the Redhawks, Steve Baker. Steve, in 2008, Miami paid a visit to the Big House, and it really was a very competitive game. I think all of us that were there remember that. Michigan won 16-6. And I'm sure Redhawk fans think it's going to be a long day, but hey, if they saw Michigan on Saturday against Notre Dame in South Bend, it probably gives you some hope.
Yeah, the only thing that game did was make Michigan mad. So the Wolverines are going to be in unhappy sorts when we show up there on Saturday to start with. But that's why they play the games. I mean, trust me, Chuck Martin and his staff and the players are not going to show up just to show up. They're going to compete, and that's kind of the measuring stick right now for Coach Martin and this team is can you go up there and can you compete for 60 minutes and play football? I mean, we saw it against Marshall when this team decided to compete. They turned things around, actually dominated the third and most of the fourth quarter against the Thundering Herd. But it takes all 22 guys and putting the effort needed to compete with Michigan, and at that point you take your chances and go on.
And I know for Miami, they've got the losing streak to deal with and want that to come to an end, so there's a lot of motivation there. Have most of these kids ever played in a stadium the size of the Big House before?
Oh, let's see. Probably, I'm trying to go back. There are always places that we will go and play anybody. They played in a lot of Big Ten stadiums, and last year at Illinois, last year at Kentucky. But probably not like the Big House. Quite honestly, there's not too many places like the Big House. I'm kind of anxious myself to get up there. I've been up there, called games. I've been calling Miami games for about 30 years, so I've been up there several times. And this will be my first trip into the new press box. So I'm looking forward to coming up and being up in Michigan. And I know the players are too. I mean, there's several iconic buildings or stadiums when you get into college football, and Michigan Stadium is certainly one of those, and I know the guys are excited about it.
Well, Steve, you've seen them then through the first two games from spring ball really up until this point. Coming in, what you know about Michigan up to this point, what do you think on offense and defense that Miami has to do better in order to be able to hang around in this game and give themselves a chance?
Miami's got it. Literally, Miami's best defense right now can be an offense that can move the football and convert on key plays. First two things that Miami has done wrong in these first two games has gone backwards on key drives. You can't make mistakes. You can't take a sack. You can't have stupid penalties. And that has been a bugaboo for Miami in the first two games offensively. So you got to move forward and move the football forward. To take a little time and keep the ball away from Michigan's offense. Defensively, the team has been playing very well. They got to stay at home. They can't. The key with this defense and with Coach Martin is you just have to do your assignment. And it's the tendency of most football players to try and do a little more than they're supposed to do, or try and do something that's not in the plan, and that's where you get beat on a trick play. And so the defense just has to stay true to themselves and go out and play some football. And, again, they're going to be playing against a very, very talented Michigan offense. And, they're just going to have to go out and play football.
Steve, the MAC had a really good day against the Big Ten on Saturday. Northern Illinois beats Northwestern. Central Michigan really handled Purdue. It makes me think a lot of folks outside of the Midwest might be surprised by that. Most of us here in the Midwest and in MAC country aren't surprised by the quality of play, and the athletes and the MAC teams are bringing in. It's such a competitive conference now. Do you think the MAC, though, is still an underrated football conference, especially from a national perspective?
Yeah, I think it might be, Mike. It's one of those things that the MAC is usually going to have that one team that is capable of competing at that level every year. It's been Northern Illinois for the past several years. Obviously, a couple of years ago, going to a BCS game, and but you see each team kind of rising up to that level. And for the most part, we're seeing 3 or 4 teams now competing at that level. Central Michigan just had a great game, as you said, against Purdue. Ball State nearly got Iowa. These teams are really picking it up, and you're seeing the coaches that are coming to the MAC, guys like Chuck Martin, that are going to rebuild this Miami program, and Pete Limbo at Ball State has done just an incredible job with the Cardinals. You're seeing the coaches that want to come in and compete at all levels, and it's really helped this conference. And I would like to see us get a little more national attention, but, as long as they take care of it on the football field, that'll come.
Well, there you go. So the Miami Redhawks will be up here on Saturday for a 3:30 kickoff, and we've been talking to the radio play-by-play voice, as you heard him mention, 30 years of calling Miami football, Steve Baker. Steve, I hope you enjoy your visit to the new press box, which is beautiful. So thank you for taking time, and have a great day in the Big House on Saturday.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Appreciate it, man.
Michigan beat writer Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press is with us next on Michigan Game Day, here on the Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. Back with us on our Michigan Game Day segment this week to take a look back at the Notre Dame game on Saturday night and then briefly look ahead to Miami's visit to the Big House this Saturday. Michigan beat writer Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press. Mark, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Sure, glad to be with you.
Well, Mark, looking back at what happened in South Bend on Saturday, can you think right now of anything positive that Michigan fans can take away from a beatdown like that?
No, nothing. I will say that in all the Michigan games I've seen in the last many years here, I can't remember one worse. I mean, you could almost always take something away. There's always a positive somewhere. And I guess maybe if there's anything, maybe the offensive line, those five guys with Graham Glasgow in there, they played well enough. They let up, one or two sacks, I think it was, we didn't have a lot of rushing yards or anything. I guess we have last year's little barometer to maybe measure them against. The
offensive line opened up enough holes for 100 yards, and I think some of the running backs missed some pretty nice lanes at times. But, the offensive line, it just seemed at times, and maybe it's just me, it seemed like they were just being manhandled a lot of the night. And, at this point with young guys, and you expect more mental mistakes, but it just seemed like they were getting pushed off the ball a lot. How do you get a handle on that right now?
The thing at this point with the offensive line, if you start shuffling them like you did last year, with 5 changes in the middle of the season, I think you need to get a group and let them learn to play together. And if it's not going to be Mason Cole left tackle, or it's not going to be someone, you need to find the 5 and stay with that 5, barring injury. And just let them get comfortable together, because otherwise you're never going to get anywhere when you keep changing it, because everything's going to be off, and they're not going to get familiarity with each other. So I think that's the biggest thing, is they need to have consistency, with who's playing, first of all, and then maybe some consistency with the play, even if it's not at an elite level.
So you don't expect against Miami to see much shuffling on that offensive line?
I don't know what to expect. Last week they were all cryptic about the plan. They said they had this plan for what they were going to do with the offensive line, and they ended up putting in Scow, who was coming back at right guard, and that was it. That was the whole plan. Well, I mean, to us, at least to me, that doesn't seem like it was a dramatic, top secret thing, but I guess that was what they felt they needed to do. I can't claim to predict what's going to happen next week.
Well, I thought Devin made good reads early watching his play, and he looked confident early, especially those first 2 drives. But in the second half, we saw him, revert to those bad habits that we saw last year. And yes, Michigan was behind by 3 scores at that point. But still, that is disconcerting, isn't it?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And I think early on, they missed those field goals, so they got nothing out of those drives. And it's always pounded into Devin's head, just play for points. If we have to kick the field, well, that's fine. We're going to get points out of it. And then when they don't get the points, I think he let that affect him. I think that bothered him, that they didn't get anything out of those drives, and then you could see a steady regression after that.
And, I think the most shocking aspect of the game to me, though, was the defensive play. I like many, thought, hey, we might struggle in South Bend with the new offense, but the defense will carry the day, or at least play better. They were stout against the run, but still didn't get much pressure, didn't force a turnover, and the secondary just got torched. Yes, there were injuries back there, but that was a very discouraging performance overall, wasn't it, Mark?
Definitely, and especially knowing, having watched Notre Dame's first game, that they did their damage through the air in that first game. I mean, they ran the ball with a bevy of tailbacks in the middle, but no one had more than 40 yards, and their running game was good, but it wasn't spectacular. They don't have a dominant Jerome Bettis back there or anything like that, or even, some of the other guys they've had who have been smaller over the years. They don't have anything like that. So they just had Golson, and obviously Michigan played to stop the run, and the balls were going over their head in the secondary, and Blake Countess got turned around on that beautiful rainbow on the 3rd touchdown into the corner. It just went right over his head. He was beaten off the line, and he didn't have a chance after that. Well, he's not a reserve quarterback. He's the starter. He's wearing the number 2. And so, when things like that happen, there's not a lot of faith.
No, and, by the third quarter, midway through the third quarter, I was asking myself, are we that bad, or is Notre Dame maybe that good? But one thing I think by that time I had decided is Everett Golson is no longer a game manager. He is a good-looking quarterback, maybe even, who knows, a Heisman candidate.
Oh, definitely, I think so. I mean, I had not filled up in the second half, but when you're up by that much in a rivalry game like that, they put their energy into the beginning, and they performed when they needed to. I think, Golson's, he's talented. He can move, and he's got that arm. I mean, some of the throws he made, hash to hash, and when he's out of the pocket and he's just gunning the ball, some of the slants that he threw in there on third down, those slants that Michigan just couldn't pull that off. I mean, Michigan knew that's what the play call they needed, and they just couldn't do it. And Notre Dame, every time, third down, inside slant, he throws it right in their gut. And they got the ball. I mean, it was just consistent pounding, and Michigan just couldn't adjust. And I think that's really a big concern. I know that Hope said something, at halftime, just all frustrated about how, because they weren't playing tight enough coverage. Well, this is what this team said they were going to do, is play this tight coverage. And I guess, if Jabril Peppers and Ray Taylor, who are the ones who weren't in there because of injuries, are the reason they can play the tighter coverage, well, then Michigan's got problems if the guys who are left can't do it.
Well, it's only one loss, Mark, and, we heard last night or Saturday night from Coach Hoke and the players. They all pretty much repeated the same thing. It is just one loss. There's a lot of the season left, and that's true. But, this week, Miami coming into the big house, and you would think that's just what the doctor ordered for this team, but there is a lot of work to do, even to get ready for this game.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, you lose 31-14, and where it's close, and then someone pulls away, then the opponent pulls away, or, something crazy happens and you lose. I mean, those games, even like things like Akron, where you make that goal line stand last year to win the game, whatever, you're concerned, but you can find the positives. After this game, it's really hard. I mean, you find a couple sustained drives, but it got worse as the game went on. In the second half, they're not even trying to run the ball, down the stretch, even though they're down those touchdowns. I mean, you see Devin Funches taking shots late in the game, down 3 and 4 touchdowns, and they're still in the game, and they're getting hurt by being in the game. I mean, there's so many things to take away from that need to be corrected. And maybe, Miami could help. I mean, Miami has lost 2 games, but Miami they lost to a FCS team, Eastern Kentucky, in their last game. But at the same time, they lost by only a touchdown, and they committed 6 turnovers and only lost by a touchdown. So, if Miami cleans this act up a little bit, they throw the ball. That's what they do. They throw the ball.
Our guest this week here on our Michigan Game Day segment is a Michigan beat writer, Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press. Well, Mark, like any Michigan fan, I'm trying not to overreact to what was really as humiliating a loss as I've seen in a long time. But, after the game, I kept asking myself, are we a program that's getting better? Do you think that's a fair question 2 weeks into the season, or is it just something, after a tough loss that people are asking?
Yeah, you don't want to spill it into too much. I mean, they looked so good in the first game, and even though Appalachian State, is new to the FBS, Michigan did what it needed to do. I mean, they ran the ball, the line protected, the defense for the most part was solid, except for 2 drives. They accomplished their goals in the first game, and that's what I said after that first game. They did what they're supposed to do. When they play better competition, we'll see how they do, and I guess we've seen that. So there's a happy medium in there somewhere where they're not as bad as they were against Notre Dame. I mean, I think it was a perfect storm of everything going wrong. When those field goals were missed, I think that just ripped their heart out and open the door for Notre Dame to just step right through. It's somewhere in the middle, and they'll get better. I mean, I believe they will. I think Michigan's got a lot of talent, and, they're going to find a way to peak. The question is, when are they going to peak? And what they have now is a run of potentially 5 or 6 unranked opponents until they face Michigan State in October 25th. So we'll see how that works out, except for the Rutgers game, there's some momentum to be had here. So take advantage of that and build up to that Michigan State game.
Well, yeah, I think the fans are just a bit antsy right now. And, before Saturday night, I thought even if Michigan loses, but it's competitive, because I thought it was very possible we could lose down there. But I thought if we don't play well, we might not see 100,000 in the stands Saturday for Miami. And, I'm not sure. This could put the streak to the test, couldn't it?
I don't know. I think all those tickets are bought a long time ago. And whether people show up, maybe that's a different deal.
Well, last question, Mark. I know I stayed up late last night reading my email. I was checking out the message boards just to get a feel for, what Michigan fans were thinking. And, they were pretty well off the charts and in a really foul moods, of course. We all overreact, I think, to that kind of loss as fans. But the 2 points or questions I saw a lot last night, and I think we're going to hear them all week, maybe even longer, is where's our player development and how long does Coach Hoke get? I mean, I know we have to let it play out. We have 10 more games, but do you sense that this very loyal fan base that's been waiting for the turnaround for, 5 or 6 or 7 years and now is sort of getting to a boiling point?
Yeah, I think they are, but I think the as long as Dave Brandon's in charge, I think that he makes his own decisions, and that's who he is. So I don't think he'll be swayed by the fan base. He doesn't operate like that, and so I don't know. I mean, I think people can yell and scream all they want, so that's not really a factor. But in terms of the player development, that's a legitimate concern, and I think it's a growing concern. And I would think that inside the building, those coaches are somewhat concerned about that they haven't seen the progress. I mean, Nussmeier was supposed to be the one who solved Devin Gardner's problems, and second half of Devin Gardner yesterday looked a lot like Devin Gardner that we've seen, last year, especially with the turnovers and even the year before. I mean, that's who he was. So Devin has to prove that he's not that guy, and I don't think yesterday certainly didn't prove that. So in terms of player development, there's a lot of areas, I think that on defense, on offense, the fact that they don't have a competent kicker right now to handle field goals, there are a lot of holes in this team, and are the solutions there? I guess we don't know that.
No, we don't know, but we'll find out some more Saturday when Miami
right.
pays a visit to the Big House. So, our guest today on our Michigan Game Day segment has been Michigan beat writer Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press. Mark, as always, thanks for taking the time, and we'll get you back on later in the season.
Glad to be with you.
An injury update and some quick facts about this week's opponent, the Miami Redhawks from the Mid-American Conference, coming up next on Wolverine Quick Hits, here on the Michigan Man Podcast, on GBMW Go Blue, Michigan Wolverine. On Wolverine Quick Hits this week, at Monday's presser, Brady didn't go into much detail about injuries. He said Funchess was okay, while Raymond Taylor and Jabril Peppers were day-to-day. Desmond Morgan was on the sidelines last week with a soft cast and his arm in a sling. Coach Hoke said he's not out for the season, but did not have a timetable for his return. So far as we know, that's it on the injury front. Here are some quick facts about this week's opponent, the Miami Redhawks. Michigan leads the series 5-0. The last meeting between these two teams was in 2008, and Michigan came away with a hard-earned 16-6 victory. Coach Chuck Martin is in his first year as the head man at Miami. Most recently, he was offensive coordinator at Notre Dame for Brian Kelly. He held the same position under Coach Kelly at Grand Valley State, then became head coach when Kelly left to become head man at Central Michigan. On Saturday in South Bend, you got a good look at the kind of offense we're going to see this week. Miami runs a multiple spread, and they air it out. The Redhawks operate out of a 4-3 defensive set. They were 0-12 last year and returned 16 starters, 8 on offense, 7 on D, and 1 special teams player. The last bowl appearance for Miami was in the 2010 GoDaddy.com Bowl, where they beat Middle Tennessee State 35-31. A reminder to visit www.gbmwolverine.com and sign up for free membership. Join our weekly live chats, get email updates when a new story publishes, and jump in on our message board to eavesdrop or take part in the always lively discussions. Don't be out of the Wolverine loop this season. Visit www.gbmwolverine.com and become a member today. If you get the show app from iTunes, please take a minute to rate and review the show. Thanks in advance. Our show app is also available from the iTunes Store, the Android Market Store at Amazon.com, and the Windows 8 App Store. You will also find us featured on TuneIn Radio or the Stitcher Radio On Demand apps. Thanks to my guests today, Miami radio play-by-play guy Steve Baker and Wolverine beat writer Mark Snyder from the Detroit Free Press. On next week's show, we'll recap the Miami game, then look ahead to a visit from the Pac-12's Utah Utes, a team that's putting a lot of points on the board through the first 2 games. My guests will be Utah play-by-play voice Bill Riley and the editor of the Wolverine magazine, John Borton. So make sure you join us again next week, and please tell your Wolverine friends about the show. this Saturday is all about resilience and confidence. Coach Hoke says this team is different than last year's. They are close and they have good leadership. We'll find out if that's the case this weekend. Miami rolls into town riding an 18-game losing streak. They will come out throwing the ball and test the Michigan secondary early and often, rest assured. Michigan cannot afford to look past anyone at this point, so Saturday is a big game, even if we're favored by over 31 points right now. And the weatherman says it will feel like fall this Saturday. Sunny skies and temps in the mid-60s for kickoff. A perfect day for football. Let's hope our Wolverines bounce back and take care of business against the Redhawks in the Big House this Saturday. That's going to take care of it for this week. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Think victory, and let's get this thing back on track against Miami. There is still a lot of football to be played this year. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until next week, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine. You can find us on the web at www.gbmwolverine.com. That's www.gbmwolverine.com. For audio posts or other fan feedback, please call our listener line at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Email fan feedback to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. That's the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast on GBMW Go Blue Michigan Wolverine is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan. The Michigan Man Podcast is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!